So we started discussing University Wits. Actually, the broad area that we are discussing now is the contemporaries of Shakespeare. And yesterday we gave an introduction. I gave an introduction to University Wits. Who are the university wits and what are the common features they share? All these things we have already discussed. So let us just have a continuation of the same topic and let us see the university wits and their works in detail. As I have already mentioned, the university wits, this particular group of playwrights had a significant role in shaping the plays into the present structure. Earlier, the plays didn't have a proper structure or something like that, so they shaped the play. And these are the people attended either Oxford or Cambridge universities, but Thomas Kidd is an exception. Please do keep this in your mind. Thomas Kidd is an exception. He hadn't attended any of these universities, but why he is included among the university wits is because his writing style was almost similar to the other members of this category, that is university wits. And this term, this is also an important information. This term, university wits, is coined by George Sainsbury, and he is the one who categorized these people under this title. And of course, we said like Lilly, Peel, and Lodge are the three people who had their degrees from Oxford universities, and Robert Greene, Thomas Nash, Christopher Marlowe from Cambridge School, Cambridge University. Thomas Kidd is an exception. And this Robert Greene, actually, he had degrees from both Oxford and Cambridge, but his major degree is from Cambridge. Okay, so we usually categorize him under this Cambridge University. Also, we discussed the common features that they share, secular, and their purpose was 100% commercial. They wrote commercial drama with rhetorical language, and sometimes they collaborated with each other in writing dramas, and they condemned the other writers who are not university educated ones. And heroic themes and treatment, we just discussed what this treatment and themes are. Then violent incidents and emotions were dominant in their works. Then unconventional protagonists, then importance to individual perception. Yesterday we had a detailed explanation on all these features. Now let's see these writers in particular. First of all, John Lilly. Okay, John Lilly was a prominent figure among the university wits, and his lifespan extends from 1554 to 1606. Okay, and he's the first major prose stylist in English. Like, he is the one who gave a kind of style to prose. Likewise, we can write, and especially though it is mentioned as prose, especially in terms of drama. Okay, the first major established or renowned prose stylist in English is, of course, John Lilly, and he had he was so powerful in terms of the social contacts. He had high social contacts, and that helped him to an extent to develop his career and to give popularity to his works. And he had a very brilliant career, such as that the likes of Greene could only hope for. Actually, among the university wits, this Robert Greene was the most ambitious one, we can say. Of course, all of them were like that, but still, he was longing for popularity. But such a popularity was not there for Robert Greene anyway, but for Lilly, this kind of a popularity was there. Robert Greene, hope you remember the person who condemned Shakespeare in one of his works, which is very popular. And this person, Lilly, he wrote some witty court allegories, and he drew concepts from classical mythology. Okay, that is what really important. His themes were from classical mythology. Mythological concepts were taken by this Lilly, and he implemented or employed this particular themes in this works of him. But his popularity, I told you, he was very popular. But his popularity waned with the rise of other writers like Marlowe, Kidd, Shakespeare, because these three are the major figures who could brought much popularity even during their lifetime. Marlowe's works even now we sometimes people think like actually Marlowe is the one who wrote in the name of Shakespeare. Okay, so that much of a reputation is there for Marlowe. And Kidd, Thomas Kidd, exceptionally for his Spanish tragedy, the play Spanish Tragedy, he is so popular. And Shakespeare, of course, we know. So all their works were so popular during that time, and by that, the popularity of Lily waned to an extent. And let's see the works of Lily. First work is Euphues, The Anatomy of Wit. Okay, The Anatomy of Wit. The Anatomy of Melancholy is another work by Robert Burton. There are like similarities in the works of many people, so don't get confused. Lily's work is Euphues. Actually, the term Euphuism is actually emerged from Lily's Euphuism, because this is a style. Euphuism is a writing style with so many ornamentated rhetoric type of style of writing, artificial style of writing, very what to say, sophisticated, artificial, ornamentated style of writing is called Euphuism. And this Euphues, The Anatomy of Wit, is such a play. The style is like that, which was published in 1578. Actually, this work is a romantic intrigue told in letters, told in the form of letters. Then this is actually interposed with discussions on love, religion, such things, etc. Okay, actually, he borrowed this plot from Boccaccio. We don't know exactly which work of Boccaccio, but anyway, the source is from Boccaccio. And Euphues, this particular word, Euphues, the first word, this is actually comes from a Greek word. And that Greek word means well-bred man. Okay, that is the meaning of this Greek word, well-bred man. And there is, this work was enormously popular and provoked numerous imitations. You can see even among the university wits, many people imitated this particular style, euphuistic style of Lily, because this was so popular during that time. And there is another work that's a sequel, Euphues and His England, which was published in 1580. Okay, these are the two major works. Actually, this Euphuism means like the formal, elaborate, stylized prose sensations. Okay, sententious, like kind of a style. Syntactical balance and antithesis can be there. Then patterns of alliteration, assonance, rhetorical questions, long similes, learned allusions, all these. It's filled with all these things. I told you, it's a very sophisticated, artificial, intellectual type of a writing style. That is what this Euphuism is. And then coming to the comedies of Lily. Actually, most of the university wits, they focused on tragedies, and we cannot find so much of humor in the works of university wits, except for Lily. Okay, Lily is the one who wrote so many comedies, and we can see the elements of humor in the works of comedies. And he devoted himself to writing comedies after 1580. So witty dialogues and skillfully constructed plots are the major attractions of the comedies of Lily. And here I have enlisted the various works, the comedies written by Lily. It's easy to remember the works of Lily, whether it is a comedy or other genre, because only two works, that is this Euphues, The Anatomy of Wit, and the sequel. Okay, these are the exceptions from comedies, and most of the other works are comedies only. See, that is Campaspe, Sappho and Phavo, Galatea, Endymion, Midas, Love's Metamorphosis, Mother Bombay, The Woman in the Moon. All these are the different works by Lilly. This Endymion, this work is really important. This is considered to be his masterpiece. Okay, Endymion, his masterpiece, and this work influenced Shakespeare and many other writers. Endymion. Then we can say this. Mother Bombino, that particular work, the only play that represents a modern theme rather than mythological stories. I told you, like, he is the one who drew stories from mythology, classical mythology. But in this Mother Bombay, you can see some contents other than this mythology. And that is what the difference, that is what makes this particular work distinguished from other works. And The Woman in the Moon is also important in a way that this is the only play he wrote in blank verse. Okay, blank verse rather than the euphuistic prose. Actually, though the first work is titled Euphuist, the Anatomy of Wit, he was he continued maintaining this euphuistic style in all his works. Okay, that was the style he, with lots and lots of allusion, alliteration, antithesis, syntactical balance, assonance, rhetorical questions, extended similes, learned allusions, okay, all these things. So euphuistic style, but The Woman in the Moon was an exception. This was written in blank verse. He didn't employ this particular euphuistic style in this particular play. Okay. And these are the comedies of Lily, we can say. So that is what all about Lily. Then comes George Peele. Okay, George Peele. George Peele's lifespan extends from 1556 to 1596. Okay, 1596. He experimented with many types of drama. That is what the importance of George Peele. Many types. I'll tell you which are the types he experimented with. And he had a predilection for violence and bloodshed, a preference for violence and bloodshed, because most of his works are filled with so much of violence, so much of bloodshed and all those. Actually, he had an attraction towards this kind of idea. So he filled his dramas with violence and bloodshed. Okay, whatever the type, whatever the genre be, he was very what to say, enthusiastic to include this kind of concepts in his particular work. The first work, The Arrangement of Paris. The Arrangement of Paris was in 1584. Sorry, I forgot to include the years, 1584. This is a mythological pastoral comedy. I told you he tried so many types of drama. And this particular play, The Arrangement of Paris, is a mythological pastoral comedy. Then the next one, The Battle of Alcazar. Okay, Battle of Alcazar came in 1589. This is a Marlowean historical tragedy. Actually, Marlowe's style was very much popular during that time. And that's why it is called Marlowean style, Baconian style, okay, Chaucerian style. So likewise, those who are very popular or very celebrated, and their style is also imitated or followed by many other writers, and that particular style will be identified with the particular writers. So this Battle of Alcazar is a Marlowean historical tragedy which was published in 1589. Then Edward First. Okay, Edward First is a chronicle play. That means historical play based on history. And from the title of the play itself, you will understand that Edward First, which was published in 1593. Okay, 1593 is the year. Then David and Fair Betsy. Okay, that is another play. Let's say. And this is a biblical tragedy. The concept is taken from the Bible and it's a tragedy. So it is known as the biblical tragedy. Okay, David and the Fair Betsy. The Old Wives' Tale, okay, the Old Wives' Tale in 1595 is his masterpiece, one of his masterpieces, and it's a satire on the popular drama of the day, the contemporary popular drama. How is it? And this is a satirical approach towards the contemporary popular drama. That is the importance of this particular work, The Old Wives' Tale, and this is considered to be one of the masterpieces of him. Then A Farewell to Arms. A Farewell to Arms is a 1590 play, and this is actually addressed to Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth first. So these are the major plays written by George Peele, so that you can see he has written a mythological pastoral comedy, a Marlowean historical tragedy, then a chronicle play, a biblical tragedy, then a satirical play on the contemporary drama, then something addressed to someone, that is A Farewell to Arms is addressed to Elizabeth I. So these are the different types he experimented with. That is the importance of George Peele. Then comes our Thomas Kidd, who is very popular, who hasn't taken any degree from this Oxford or Cambridge, but still he is considered to be one of the University Wits just because of his writing style. Okay, that is, his lifespan extends from 1558 to 1594. Okay, that's how his lifespan goes. And then we can say he had a very short dramatic career. This person had a very short dramatic career. Actually, he imprisoned and tortured on a suspicion of spreading heresy and atheism in 1593. And that is one of the reasons why he had a very short dramatic career. Okay, actually, why he was imprisoned, why he was tortured, because he had probably it might be due to his sharing of lodging with Marlowe, Christopher Marlowe. Christopher Marlowe was an established atheist. Okay, he was an atheist, and that was known to everyone. And this person, Thomas Kidd, was sharing the lodging with Marlowe, and he had close connections with Marlowe. And that may be one of the reasons for accusing this person also to be an atheist, and he was imprisoned and had to undergo all these tortures for suspicion of spreading heresy and atheism. Then his last years of his life were spent in abject poverty. Okay, after this imprisonment and all, it was very difficult for him to find a living source, and he found it very difficult to difficult for his survival. Even for his survival, he found it very difficult, and he died soon after the release from the prison. He couldn't hold on for a long time, so he died soon after the release from the prison. His career is believed to be, regarding his career, he's believed to be the author of Spanish tragedy. Okay, that is the most popular work by Thomas Kidd. And actually, Thomas Kidd, the name is actually synonymously identified with the play Spanish tragedy. Okay, so that much of a popular play it is. Just like Arundhati Roy with God of Small Things, we can say like Thomas Kidd, okay, Spanish tragedy. It comes together. And we believe that Thomas Kidd is the author of Spanish tragedy because there was another writer like Thomas Heywood, and Thomas Heywood, in his Apology for Actors, his work was Apology for Actors, and in this book he had some references regarding Thomas Kidd and this particular work, Spanish tragedy. And that's why otherwise Spanish tragedy is not actually published with his name or something like that. We got this information from Thomas Haywood's this particular book, Apology for Actors, and in which he mentioned that the Spanish tragedy is written by Thomas Kidd, or some details are given in this particular work. And that's why we are believing that he is the author of, Kidd is the author of the play Spanish Tragedy, and also believed to have written the lost original of Hamlet, that is, or Hamlet. When I was discussing Hamlet, I mentioned, or I told you that you are Hamlet. Hamlet is one of the sources for Hamlet, and it might have written by Thomas Kidd. Actually, this is lost. This particular work is lost. It is not available as such, but there was such a work. We got such references from other works and other writers, and this Hamlet is also believed to have written by Thomas Kidd. Okay. And he wrote a Senecan tragedy, Cornelia. And this was actually written in French, and in 1594, this got translated from French to English. And then probably he collaborated in Arden of Feversham. Okay, Arden of Feversham, and this is one of the domestic tragedies. We don't know, he's not the exclusive author of this particular work, but he collaborated with someone else for this particular work. Okay, and so these are the plays attributed to Thomas Kidd, or to his credit, we have this much of plays. Then Spanish tragedy has a subtitle. What is that? Geronimo is mad again. Okay, Geronimo is the protagonist of of Spanish tragedy, and Geronimo is mad again is the subtitle for Spanish tragedy, and it was published in 1589. Okay. This work produced at about the same period of Tamburlaine and the Equal Merit. Tamburlaine was written by Christopher Marlowe. That was a very popular work, and this particular work was also written and produced during the same period with equal merit. Okay, it was really popular during that time. Actually, along with Tamburlaine, this Kidd's Spanish tragedy was also a success in the London stage. Then Spanish tragedy is considered to be the first proper English revenge tragedy. We have seen that Hamlet is a revenge tragedy, and we have also seen the features of a revenge tragedy, how these features can be applied to certain works so that we can identify them to be revenge tragedies. We have seen all these things. But Thomas Kidd's Spanish tragedy is considered to be the first proper English revenge tragedy. Then intense personal passions, madness as a metaphor, all these are the basic features of this particular work, Spanish tragedy. Actually, considering his other plays, he's exclusively popular for Spanish tragedy, because Hamlet is a lost one. We don't know exactly what is the exact content and all those things, so that cannot be considered. And this Geronimo is mad again, the subtitle of Spanish tragedy, is to be remembered. Then actually Spanish tragedy was really a success for other reasons too. Why? Because it was written at a time that is in 1580s. Okay, this Spanish tragedy was written during 1580s. And this was the time when Spain was regarded England's most hated enemy. Hope you remember Spanish Armada. Spain was attacking England, and England was defending. England won over Spain, and so many things where the political background was like that. So, see, for an example, when we are having an issue with Pakistan or China or another countries, and when we defeat such a country, or when we have conflicts with such a country, a work comes. war comes, and it is like it's full of the defeat, or the downfall of that opposing country. So that time the patriotic spirit and all those things will come, and we love to see the defeat or the downfall of the opposing country. So the same happened in the case of Spanish tragedy also. Because Elizabethan audience may have therefore been pleased at the denouncement of the tragedy, where the royal lines of both Spain and Portugal, both were the enemies of England, Portuguese as well as Spain. So the main royal lines of all these two countries wiped out in an orgy of violence, and that is something seem to be pleasurable for the English audience, and that can also be one of the reasons. And of course, it was written in a very structured way of a revenge tragedy. So anyway, Spanish tragedy was a huge success. Then comes Thomas Lodge. Thomas Lodge's lifespan extends from 1558 to 1625. He is the son of Sir Thomas Lodge. He was the Lord Mayor of London. Okay, so Lodge is born to a sophisticated family, but later this father, that is son of Sir Thomas Lodge, I told you, his father, Thomas Lodge's father, it is the same name. He was imprisoned for debt after some time. And this person, Thomas Lodge, he practiced medicine and sailed on expeditions to the Canaries of South America. Then his prose was also euphuistic. Okay, Thomas Lodge's prose was also euphuistic in style, and that is of course inspired from Lilly. Okay, Lilly's style, euphuistic style, and his work is also euphuistic in nature. And he is the one other than Sidney and Puttenham who responded to Stephen Gossen's School of Abuse. Hope you remember Stephen Gossen's. We just discussed Stephen Gossen's School of Abuse and how he ill-treated the poets, and he accused or he raised some allegations against the poets. So along with Sidney, along with Puttenham, Thomas Lodge was also a person who responded to Stephen Gossen's School of Abuse. The work was Defense of Poetry, Music, and Stage Plays. Sidney's work is Defense of Poesy or Apology for Poetry, and this particular person's work is Defense of Poetry, Music, and Stage Plays. It was written in 1580. Hope you remember the year in which Gossen wrote it, that is 1579, and the next year itself, that is in 1580 itself, Lodge gave a reply, that is the Defense of Poetry, Music, and Stage Plays. Then an alarm against the usurers, that is another prose work by Thomas Lodge. Okay, an alarm against the usurers, 1584 work. Then Scylla's Metamorphosis, 1589 works. This is an Ovidian erotic epyllion, a classical style structured work. Actually, this particular work influenced Shakespeare's Venus and Adonis. While Shakespeare was writing Venus and Adonis, this was an inspiration. Lodge's this work was an inspiration for Shakespeare. Then The Devil Conjured in 1596 is another play. This is a defense of ascetic life in the form of a dialogue. It is written in the form of a dialogue, a defense of the ascetic life. Then comes The Wit's Misery. Okay, Wit's Misery, which was published in 1596. This is a sermon on the 7 deadly sins. There are 7 deadly sins, and many of the writers made use of or included this as one of the themes in their works. And Wit's Misery is a sermon on 7 deadly sins. So these are the major works by Thomas Lodge. And yeah, till other major works are also there. I hope you remember this work, Rosalind Euphues' Golden Legacy. I don't know whether you remember. This is a source for As You Like It by William Shakespeare. Rosalind is the the female protagonist of Shakespeare's As You Like It, and the same name is taken from a lodge. So while we were discussing As You Like It, I have mentioned this particular work, Rosalind Euphues' Golden Legacy. Which was published in 1590. This was a most successful prose romance and a source of As You Like It. Then Phyllis. Phyllis in 1593 is a sonnet cycle. Then a Fig for Momus. Okay, a Fig for Momus in 1595. Actually, he introduced the classical satire and verse epistle, such as those of Horace, Juvenal, how Horatians, there are different satires, like classical satires, like Horatian satire, Juvenalian satire, all these things. And actually, he introduced this classical satire style to English by this particular work, that is a Fig for Momus. Then major romance, he has written a major romance, that is a Margaret of America. Okay, the Margaret of America, which was in 1596. These are the other major works of Thomas Lodge. Again, he has two more plays. Lodge's plays, actually, The Wounds of the Civil War. Okay, The Wounds of the Civil War is a play by Lodge. And this is printed in 1594 based on the Roman history. Okay, Roman history indirectly influenced by Marlowean Tamburlaine hyperbole, because Marlowe's Tamburlaine also, just like its Spanish tragedy and Lily's Euphues, this particular work, Tamburlaine, also influenced so many people, so that Tamburlaine hyperbolic style was actually adapted and employed in this particular work, The Wounds of Civil War. It is based on the Roman history. Okay, then another work, is actually forgot to mention the other work here. The Looking Glass for London and England. That is the other work. I told you there are two plays written by Lodge, exclusively written by Lodge. One is The Wounds of Civil Wars, and the second one is A Looking Glass for London and England. A Looking Glass for London and England, which was printed in 1594 again. This is actually considered to be a collaboration with Green. It's a biblical morality play, but we don't know exactly whether it is written by both of them or Lodge alone. And he also believed to have collaborated with Shakespeare in Henry VI, Part 2. Okay, Henry VI Part 2. While we were discussing Henry VI Part 2, we have mentioned this also. Thomas Lodge might have been collaborated with Shakespeare in this particular work. So it is there. We don't know exactly, but it is believed to have collaborated, because we have some references regarding these kinds of ideas in other works of other major writers during that time. That's why we cannot actually stick on to this, but we are believing this can be. Then comes other writer, Robert Greene. You must be familiar with Greene. Greene is popular for, oh my God, Greene's content is the same. Okay, this is Greene. Yes, this is Greene. And he actually raised so much of allegations against Shakespeare, and actually with his work, A Groat's Worth of Wit. With this particular work only, we got some references on the life of Shakespeare, and Shakespeare was an emerging writer during that time. We got all these informations from Greene only. I told you there are some years in Shakespeare's life which is unknown to everyone. We don't know what he was doing during that time. But after that, Robert Greene wrote this kind of an expression about Shakespeare in his work, and we got the idea that okay, Shakespeare was existing and he was writing, and others were jealous of him or not so happy with them. In the first introductory part of University, which I told you that most of these people they didn't consider other writers who were not university educated are worthy enough. Okay, and Robert Greene was very popular, very dominant among them. He thought like only university educated people, only those branded people can write well, or they can contribute well or something like that. That was actually existing during that time, especially among the university wits, and again especially with Robert Greene. Actually, I told you he got degrees from both Oxford as well as Cambridge, both Oxford and Cambridge universities. But his major degree was from Cambridge, and that's why we usually categorize him under Cambridge School. Okay, and this he left his wife for a life of pleasure in the London underworld. That is actually a gossip or a rumor about this particular person. He left his wife for a life of pleasure in the London underworld to make money, for which he wrote prolifically. I told you all these writers wrote for commercial purpose only, and he was longing for popularity, he was longing for money, he was longing for luxuries, he was very ambitious, over ambitious, and so he wrote a lot of works. Prolifically he was wrote, but unfortunately he was not that popular. Okay, he was not that popular, but what he longed for is actually there for Lily. Lily was really popular during that time. Robert Greene was not that popular, but he wrote prolifically just for the commercial purpose. Then actually we got all these details of his life from his auto. Okay. So, as we were discussing, we got all these details from of his life from his autobiographical pamphlets. He has written so many autobiographical pamphlets during that time, and that's how we got all these personal informations on Robert Greene. Actually, in these autobiographical pamphlets, he was giving so many descriptions of the low life in London that he experienced, the underworld life and all those things. And he got into a feud of pamphlets with Gabriel Harvey. Okay, feud means a fight, a pamphlet fight. He is writing something, the other is writing another thing. He's again writing something. So that kind of a feud happened between Gabriel Harvey and Robert Greene. We can just understand how egoistic he was from the expressions he gave on Shakespeare. So this happened. Actually, Gabriel Harvey is a writer, scholar, and he was Edmund Spenser's friend. Okay, so he was also a prominent figure during that time, and these people had this kind of a pamphlet fight, and wrote prose works imitative of Euphues and Arcadia. This was a person. Greene was also a person who got influenced by or impressed by the writing style of Lilly, that is Euphuistic writing style, and he too followed this kind of works. And of course, he is known for, popularly known for this particular work, A Groat's Worth of Wheat, that too with this reference on Shakespeare, an upstart crow beautified with our feathers. Hope you remember that we have actually discussed this particular quote in very detail while we were discussing the Elizabethan period and all those things, Shakespeare, introduction to Shakespeare. So he turned to playwriting. Actually, I told you, no, he wrote prose works imitative of the Euphues and Arcadia. Actually, Pandosto. Pandosto is one of the work. Actually, this Pandosto is a source for the Winter's Tale by Shakespeare. Hope you remember. I have mentioned it when we were discussing the Winter's Tale. Pandosto is a source, and he wrote Pandosto as well as Mammalia, Xenophon. These are some works by Robert Greene. And then he turned to playwriting towards the end of his career. And strong personal element and a confessional tone was maintained in his particular works, and he imitated even Marlowean style in his dramas. And his works are like Alphonsus, King of Aragon, which was in 1587. Then Friar Bacon and Friar Bongay. Okay, this was in 1589, and this was the first successful romantic comedy in English. Okay, that is by Robert Greene. Robert Greene is not a what to say, a failure or something like that, but he didn't get the popularity that he longed for. That is the thing I mentioned. And this is the first successful romantic comedy in English, which won the Friar Bacon and Friar Bongay. Then James IV. James Fourth is another work, and this is a forerunner of As You Like It and A Midsummer Night's Dream for its use of romance and fairy love. Okay, I told you that this Midsummer Night's Dream and such works of Shakespeare are like full of fantasy. A fairy land is actually created by Shakespeare in such works. So, James Fourth by Robert Greene is considered to be a forerunner or a model for Shakespeare to write this kind of work. And actually, Greene was writing a lot during that time for this commercial purpose. And Greene describes himself as admired by the uneducated and low caste actors and wished to write only because he needed the money to survive, unlike Lily, because Lily was writing for the court. The exact purpose was not only money, but he was writing for the court. But Robert Greene openly told that he is writing for money, and he praises himself in a way that the uneducated and low class actors are admiring him. They are asking him to write more, and they wanted to have more works from Greene and all those things. And yeah, it's like that. Then comes Thomas Nash. Thomas Nash's lifespan extends from 1567 to 1601. You can see like all these people are having a very short lifespan, and he was a friend of Greene, Robert Greene. Okay, this person was a friend of Robert Greene, and he helped him in the fight with Gabriel Harvey. I told you, he has had a feud with Gabriel Harvey through pamphlets. And Thomas Nash was a person who helped him in this pamphlets, who gave ideas and supported him, and something like that. And this person, Nash, also was having the euphuistic prose style. He was also inspired by the euphuistic prose style. And he invented prose hybrids. Okay, of course, the style was euphuistic, but at the same time, he invented prose hybrids, means combining various styles, the hybrid version of prose style. One style, another style, and he combined all these styles together, and he experimented with such writings. And one of the important works by him is the Anatomy of Abserain. Okay, Anatomy of Abserain. This was in 1589. This is a bold survey of contemporary writings. Okay, he made a survey, he made an analysis of the contemporary writings, and that is what called the Anatomy of Abserain. Then wrote the preface to Greene's Xenophon. I told you, Greene had some plays like Xenophon, and then one another work was all there, Mammalia. Mammalia and Xenophon were the two works written by Greene, and Thomas Nash was the person who wrote an introduction to this particular work, Xenophon, because he was a close friend. Now let's see the major works of Thomas Nash. First of all, Piers Penniless. Piers Penniless was in 1592, and there is a subtitle for this particular play, that is His Supplication to the Devil. His Supplication to the Devil is the subtitle for peers penniless. This is again a satire on the seven deadly sins. I told you, during that time, many people made the seven deadly sins a content, and this particular work is a satire on the seven deadly sins, and this is the first distinctive work of Thomas Nash. Till then he was just collaborating and he was supporting other writers or something like that, but this is considered to be the first distinctive work of Nash. And he even satirized Gabriel Harvey and his brothers in this particular work. See how good a friend he is to Green. He satirized this Gabriel Harvey and his brothers. Then Christ tears over Jerusalem in 1593. Christ tears over Jerusalem. This was actually written during the Black Death, 1592 to 94 period of Black Death. So that kind of a warning and everything, a warning for Reformation and all these things were there in this particular work. Then he collaborated with Ben Jonson in the satirical play The Isle of Dogs. Actually, that was a disaster. The Isle of Dogs, which was in 1597, for which both of them were persecuted. Both of them had to undergo punishments for the content of that particular play. The content found to be offensive for some people, and being the authors of this particular play, both Ben Jonson and Nash, both of them had to undergo the punishments. Then comes The Unfortunate Traveler, or The Life of Jack Wilson. Actually, it is Wilton, not Wilson, it's Wilton. 1594 work, and this is considered to be the first picaresque novel in English. Picaresque novel means the hero will be wandering here and there, but of course the adventurous activities of the hero will be mentioned, and hero will be from the lower class. So likewise there are some features for this picaresque structure that was later so dominant in British literature. And this Unfortunate Traveler is considered to be the first picaresque novel in English, and this is a strong personalized narrative of adventure, and dedicatory epistle to Earl of Southampton. He had a dedicatory epistle attached to this particular work, and that was for Earl of Southampton. Okay, a rogue hero, Jack Wilton. He is definitely in picaresque novels. The heroes will be like a rogue, not so sophisticated, from lower class or lower middle class, something like that. So this particular person, Jack Wilson, is also from such a lower class rogue hero, and his journey through Italy and Germany, as that is actually the content of this particular work. And he encounters numerous atrocities until he is converted to a better life. So that is what all about Thomas Nash. And then there comes Christopher Marlowe, one of the very popular figures among the University Wits. His lifespan extends from 1564 to 1593. And he born in Canterbury as the son of a cobbler. Okay, he was the son of a cobbler, not from a sophisticated family. And he went to Corpus Christi College, Cambridge. Then an age of Catholic versus Protestant political intrigue was there, and Marlowe is believed to have been a spy. That's why I told you that this Marlowe was an atheist, and Marlowe was actually arrested, and he was ordered to be killed, even executed. And I told you, kid had to undergo all these pressures, all these tortures, imprisonment, just because he had close connections with Marlowe and he had a shared lodging with Marlowe. So for all these things, kid also had to undergo all such punishments. So Marlowe was considered to be a spy, but the thing is, like, we don't know exactly the life and the what to say, the events happened in the life of Marlowe. It is just from the references from other people and some speculations, some assumptions. All these are there, of course. Then he had a very violent and disreputable behavior. He had often fights with other people, then atheism, and probably he was a member of Relay School of Night and a circle of freethinkers. Hope you remember Walter Relay. Walter Relay got executed for the suspicion of being a atheist. Hope you remember. So Marlowe was considered to be a member of this Relay circle, and he was also suspected to be a homosexual. Okay, from some of his contents, some of his behavioral nature, this kind of a suspicion is also there that he may be a homosexual person. And he was died in a drunken brawl at Deptford. Okay, it's a brawl kind of a party, this bar things and all. And there some disputes happened, a drunken disputes happened, and someone killed this person. Okay, that's how he died. Actually, he died a couple of days after an order for his arrest was made. Even if he, hadn't died, he would have been arrested by the authority, because the arrest warrant was already issued. But, after some days, before getting arrested, he died in a drunken brawl. Then some believe that William Shakespeare was his pseudonym. I told you, no, William Shakespeare is still a mystery for everyone. And Marlowe was a strong name associated or attributed to this Shakespeare writings, because it can be Marlowe, because Marlowe's style of writing is too good, and there are lots of similarities and possibilities of Marlowe to be Shakespeare, because he is a university educated person and he has all these kinds of intellectual potential, imaginative potential, all those things to write in multi-dimensional ways, just like Shakespeare has done. So some people still believe that William Shakespeare was his pseudonym, and it was Marlowe who wrote all the works in the name of Shakespeare. And actually, Marlowe is considered to be the most important predecessor in drama for Shakespeare. Okay, before Shakespeare, who was the mightiest, or who was the most powerful, who was the most efficient person? That is, of course, Christopher Marlowe. So Shakespeare's most important predecessor in drama is Marlowe, and among the university wits also, Marlowe is the most prominent or most important figure. And he perfected dramatic blank verse. Then let us see Marlowe's works, how Marlowe's works are. All tragedies. Okay, he has written, actually his dramatic career extends for just 5 years, and he has written a couple of dramas, and all are tragedies. He hasn't written even a single comedy. And a blank verse, of course. I told you, he perfected the dramatic blank verse. And Ben Jonson, most of the people during that time and even later period admired Marlowe for his style, for his content, for his writing and everything. And Ben Jonson called a mighty line his writing style, and this blank verse, the dramatic blank verse that Marlowe employed, is addressed as Mighty Line by Ben Jonson. Then there is a Renaissance quest for power and beauty. Actually, why Ben Jonson called it Mighty Line? Because of its energy, its splendor of diction, its sensuous richness, and then the variety of pace. It was like too good. The writing style was too good. And that's why Jonson called it the Mighty Line. And of course, he had this poetic vision, this unity, and no sense of plot except in Edward II. Actually, like the plot should be like this or like that. It is not like that. Except in Edward II, there is no sense of plot. Then simple characterization. We can easily understand what kind of a hero is that. It is not at all complicated. Okay, we can easily understand it. And then the order of his works is actually not clear. Which comes first, which comes second, it is not clear. Actually, the life of Christopher Marlowe itself is not that clear, and especially the order of his works is not that clear. Then Chamberlain the Great, two parts, and they published anonymously in 1590. Okay, Chamberlain the Great. Um, uh, I told you, it was Chamberlain the Great was a huge success on the English stage. Then the Jew of Malta comes then 1592. Actually, this is an order we have assumed, and we consider like this can be the order in which he has written, but we don't know exactly whether he has written something earlier or not. According to the publication years, we just categorize the order, that's it. So first come Chamberlain the Great. There are two parts for that. Then Jew of Malta, Edward II, Dr. Faustus, The Tragedy of Dido, then Hero and Leander. That is an unfinished poem. Okay, so all the plays he had written are tragedies. Hero and Leander is an unfinished poem. Then one more place there, the massacre at Paris. That is a historical play that was not included. So the massacre of Paris, the tragedy of Dido. Tragedy of Dido is with Nash. Okay, it is with Nash. It's a collaborated work. Then Dr. Faustus, Edward II, the Jew of Malta, Chamberlain the Great. So exclusively he has written Chamberlain the Great, the Jew of Malta, Edward II, Dr. Faustus, and then the Massacre at Paris. These are the 5 plays by Christopher Marlowe. And then he collaborated with Nash for this particular work, that is the Tragedy of Dido, and also he has written an unfinished poem, that is Hero and Leander. And you should go in detail of some of the plays by Christopher Marlowe. Especially, are you familiar with any of his plays? Have you studied? Is it included in your syllabus?
Ma'am, Dr. Faustus.
Dr. Faustus. You have learned it. You know Dr. Faustus.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So, of course, among his plays, Dr. Faustus is the most popular one, in which we can see the Renaissance hero who is longing for, knowledge, urge for knowledge. In the first soliloquy itself, you might have seen that he is thinking, what is next? What is to be learned next? And he is like science, theology, philosophy. So he is analyzing all these. No, he wants more. Likewise, that is Renaissance humanism. And Renaissance humanism came, human being at the center, and they they are seeking for knowledge, the quest for knowledge. That is what actually the main attraction, or the main feature that can be attributed to this kinds of heroes. And even Jew of Malta, Chamberlain the Great, everywhere you can see over ambitious man. And you know what happens in Dr. Faustus finally. So he is like giving this kind of an example. And that's why in the beginning I told you that unconventional protagonists, I told you, unconventional protagonists and plot, because this Dr. Faustus and other heroes or protagonists of Marlowe and many of the other writers are not a conventional type of a hero or a protagonist. Of course, there are differences. So that is what the importance of him. Chamberlain the Great has 2 parts. Please keep that in your mind. Then Jew of Malta in 1589. Actually, it's a tragedy with some comic elements. Some comic elements are there. Barabbas is the character in Jew of Malta, and he's actually a villainous hero. We can't say he's a hero. He's actually a Machiavellian villain. Then actually this Jew of Malta influenced Shakespeare to write The Merchant of Venice. Okay, Shylock is the character, is actually developed from this Barabbas, this character, Barabbas. Then Yeah, that is what all about Marlowe. Then another thing, a Marlowean hero is there. Marlowean style I mentioned, like some of the people were following this Marlowean style. So just like that, there are some importance for Marlowean heroes, Marlowe's heroes. Mostly, Marlowe's heroes were played by an actor called Edward Alleyn. Edward Alleyn, Alleyn, Edward Alleyn. He was the actor, mostly acted the major roles or the protagonist roles of Christopher Marlowe. And he was so good at acting the heroes of Christopher Marlowe. Actually, it is not heroes but anti-heroes. Okay, Marlowe's heroes are anti-heroes, and we can see a very humble beginning and a rise to great wealth and power, then a lust for this power followed by a tragedy. So this kind of a structure is actually maintained in many of Marlowe's works and his protagonists. Then ambivalence, violent, masculine, ruthless, yet winning sympathies. This is actually the structure of the hero. They'll be like ambivalent, very confused people, violent people, over ambitious people, very masculine people. That means they retain the masculine qualities. Then ruthless people, but still they actually win some kind of sympathies from the audience. Even in Dr. Faustus, as you are familiar with it, towards the end, when Faustus was torn by the devils, Lucifer, Mephistopheles, and all other devils. We feel like he had enough options, opportunities. He could have chosen for another option, and after that also, though he cannot escape from that, there were many options for him to repent, but he is not repenting. And towards the end, when this person was struggling, as he was facing this violent death, people will feel a kind of sympathy. Oh, sad. We won't be happy for his death. So that is the significance of Marlowe's heroes. Though they are ruthless, though they are very masculine, or they are violent or over ambitious, still they win a kind of sympathy from the audience. That is the peculiarity of the Marlowean hero. Then so many inner conflicts will be there. The good angel, the bad angel are the two inner shades in Faustus, and he was struggling to have a conclusion. He was struggling to take a decision, and most of the times, all the times, the bad angel won. So the Renaissance spirit, power, beauty, knowledge, and all those things are dominating in the works of this Marlowean hero. And of course, what is another thing important about Marlowe is the mighty line opined by Ben Jonson. Mighty line was a phrase attributed to Marlowe by Ben Jonson. I already told you, because his blank verse had not been the accepted verse form for drama during that time, and he was the one who perfected this blank verse, and he was the one who showed that this is very suitable for drama, and the drama can be really beautiful with this kind of blank verse and all those things. Okay, actually the features of this mighty line is like the musical quality, then the natural rhythm. It avoids monotony. Okay, then resonance and grandeur, allusions to classical mythology, splendor of diction, energy, versatility. All these can be seen in the lines of, or the writing style, the sentence structures of Christopher Marlowe, and that's why it is called mighty lines. His mighty lines are very popular. The grandeur style, grand style by Milton is actually referred or identified by us, no? So just like that, this mighty line of Christopher Marlowe is also very important. If you go through some lines, some quotations from Dr. Foster, so they are like really impressive actually. We feel like continuing with reading. That is actually the peculiarity of his mighty line. So there ends the University Wits, the 7 people and their major works. Please do once more listen to the lecture and just keep in your mind which are the important works and the writing styles that they implemented. Actually, in a nutshell, these are the people who helped in shaping the drama to its present form, that is the Elizabethan form. Then comes Ben Jonson, another important figure during the Elizabethan period, another major strong contemporary of William Shakespeare. His lifespan extends from 1572 to 1637. And just like Shakespeare, he was also not a university educated person. So Green and other university wits actually condemned Shakespeare as well as Ben Jonson, because these two people, though they are not university educated, they were popular during that time. They were celebrated figures during that time. So these two people had this kind of contemptuous behavior. They had to encounter this kind of behavior from other people. So Ben Jonson was actually worked as a bricklayer like his stepfather, and later he served as a soldier in Flanders. That is the Low Countries, not a very big position or something like that. And he became an actor and playwright with the Lord Admiral's company in 1597. Okay. And I told you he got imprisoned for the satirical play The Isle of Dogs. With whom? With Nash. Nash was actually associating him or collaborated with him in writing this particular work, The Isle of Dogs, in 1597. And they both got imprisoned for this satirical play for its content. The content was identified to be, not or offensive for a group of people. So that's why. Then he actually, this person is also having a very notorious identity. Okay, very notorious identity because he killed a fellow actor in a duel and escaped execution with his wit. It usually says so. Then he wrote masks for private performances in King James Court. Actually, he's known for this masks. Masks means Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson is the one who popularized this masks, and he has written some. Then he quarreled bitterly with Inigo Jones, his stage designer, Ben Jonson, stage designer, Inigo Jones, and he had heavy quarrels with him. Again, he quarreled with Marston and Dekker in the War of Theatres. So he had so many such fighting backgrounds. Then Everyman in his humor. You must be familiar with this particular work, which is written by Johnson. Everyman in his humor, which was in 1598, made him a celebrity, made him so popular among the playwrights of that time. And he was actually something of a literary dictator of the Mermaid Tavern. Like he was insisting on the maintenance of 3 unities, and he was dictating actually. Okay, this should be like this should be like that. The classical ideas of drama was actually strictly followed by Ben Jonson. And when he died, he was buried in Westminster Abbey with the epitaph, "Oh rare Ben Jonson." Okay, this is the epitaph of Ben Jonson. "Oh rare Ben Jonson." Then what he is famous for? Of course, the comedy of humors. Okay, comedy of humors means simply it's a technique of characterization. Okay, characterization. There are 4 humors in a human body. There are 4 humors, that is blood, phlegm, choler or yellow bile, and melancholy or black bile. And each person will be dominated by one of these, and that's how we decide, or the nature decides the nature of a person. We usually say, oh, that's a very calm person, or he's a very sweet person, he's a very angry person, she's a very sad person, or she's a very melancholic person. We usually identify with a general characteristic that is dominant in a person. And that is actually identified with the dominance of these four humors in a human body. And first one, if a person is dominant with blood, that person is called sanguine type. Okay, sanguine type means sociable and pleasure seeking, that kind of a person. Then if it is if that person is dominated with phlegm, then that is a phlegmatic person, relaxed and quiet, whatever comes, no problem, this is my style, and this is how I am. Then choleric person, that is dominated by color or yellow bile, that person will be very ambitious and leader like, that kind of people who are like over ambitious. Then comes melancholy or black bile. That such people will be melancholy, introverted and thoughtful people. So you can just identify yourself as well as your friends, family members, and everyone, which can be the humor that is dominant in a person's body. And that's how what to say, the behavior also would be. And Robert Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy, when I was discussing Lily, it was Anatomy of Wit. Okay, Euphu is Anatomy of Wit, and this is Robert Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy. And other writers, so many people also wrote books on this humoral physiology during this period. Okay, so this was actually this is for what actually Ben Jonson famous for. And in his works, rather than the structure of the plot or the significance of the plot, you can see the detailed characterization of characters or individual people. How that if that person is phlegmatic, he'll be a very relaxed and quiet person, and he'll give more and more details into that, his activities, or his way of approach towards a problem, and something like that. That will be like the major attraction. Which one, Shakti? Comedy of humors?
Yes, ma'am. Comedy of humors.
No, comedy of
Is
humors is not a work. It's a technique of characterization. That is what I was saying. Okay, it's a technique. Comedy of humors means a technique of characterization, according to which we can identify what kind of a person is that. If this, because our body is filled with this blood, phlegm, choler, that is yellow bile or black bile. In all our bodies, this four humors are there. And then which is dominant? If blood is dominant, if I am a person who is dominant with blood, I am a sanguine person, I am a very sociable and pleasure seeking person. And this is his theory actually. Okay, a technique, a theoretical technique of characterization. And this is something he introduced in his work, Every Man in His Humor. Okay, Every Man in His Humor. And in that particular work, this technique is he has given a detailed description of this technique. And you can see if it is a phlegmatic person, like I'm saying, like, okay, Shakti is a sanguine person. Then Shakti is like dominant with blood, sociable and pleasure-seeking person. Then if a person is phlegmatic, that is dominant with phlegm, then that person is like a relaxed and quiet. And if a person is dominant with yellow bile, then that person is ambitious and leader-like. Then if that person is melancholic in, black bile is dominating in that person's body, then that person is melancholic, like will be introverted and thoughtful. This is the theory of Ben Jonson. Okay, this is a theory for, or a technique for characterization. This is how with this kind of things he can develop and he can explain the characteristic features of a person. For just example, I guess you are not familiar with the works of Ben Jonson. For example, take Shakespeare's Hamlet. And while we are analyzing Hamlet with this kinds of things, we can say definitely he is not a sanguine person in that particular drama. He's not sociable, he's not pleasure seeking, and he's not relaxed and quiet. He's not ambitious or leader like. He is kind of introverted and thoughtful in all his ways. So we can say that Hamlet is a character who is dominant with black bile. So he is a very melancholic type of a person. Likewise, okay. So with this theory, with this technique of characterization, we can identify what kind of a person is that. We have such general notions on people, right? This person is like that. This person is he's a happy person. She is a sad person, or she's a very strong leader, like very ambitious girl, and he's a very introverted, thoughtful person. So likewise, we generalize, and that generalization is based on these four humors, and this is a technique of characterization which was introduced by Ben Jonson in his popular work Every Man in His Humor. And in terms of Every Man in His Humor, we can say that this particular play is not popular for its plot or structure or its arrangement or something like that, but for this kind of characterization. He has given a detailed picture of each and every character. If a person is constructed in a way, what kind of the characteristic features that person is having. Is he a relaxed person? Is he an angry person? Is he an introverted person? So likewise, with that person's activities, with that person's communication with others, with that person's dialogues, with that person's interference in certain matters, we can understand, okay, this is a person. So that kind of a characterization was given much importance in the works of Ben Jonson. Okay, so that is what really important, and he introduced this comedy of humors, this theory of characterization, this technique of characterization in his work Every Man in His Humor. Okay, he has attached to this theory also. The individual is marked by one of the characteristic distortion or eccentricity based on the four humors in the body, either blood, phlegm, choler, or melancholy, that is yellow bile or black bile. So what is dominating? The person will be having that kind of a nature. That is what the significance of this for humors. That's a theory. Okay, hope you understood. If you have further doubts on that, anyway, we have to discuss Ben Jonson in detail. If you have further doubts on this comedy of humors, please do ask me. We will discuss it in detail in the next class. I hope you got an idea of that by now.